Is this on? Hello? Hello? Oh, hello, guys! It's the best group ever, Dennis, Stefan, Carrie, and Eric. Anyways, today we will be presenting, um, the 7 different topics: the election of 1824 and Jacksonian democracy, which will be, represented by Stefan, the Indian Removal Act, and the Bank Wars, which will be done by Skip by Carrie, and the Nullification Crisis and Public Opinions of Andrew Jackson and Henry Clay by Eric He. And last but not least, I will be covering the topic: how did the era of Jackson show evidence of increasing sectionalism in the United States? Thank you, and I hope you enjoy.
The presidential election of 1824. The collapse of the Federalist Party and the illness of the official candidates of the Democratic Republicans led to a slate of candidates who were all Democratic Republicans. This led to the end of the caucus system for nominating candidates and eventually development of the new two-party system in the U.S. In the election, Andrew Jackson won the popular vote and electoral votes, but John Quincy Adams became president. A movement for more democracy in the American governmental in 1830s, led by President Andrew Jackson. This movement championed greater rights for the common man and was opposed to any signs of aristocracy in the nation, aided by people in the newer settlements of South and West, and also of the votes in the eastern states to men without property.
May 28, 1830. Cherokee Tribe. Grandpa, why are we moving?
Because Uncle Andrew Jackson told us to. We have to move west of the Mississippi. I'll move out of here.
Grandpa, let's not be one of those tribes who peacefully go and resist this policy.
Later, in the winter of 1838,
Grandpa, why is the United States government here?
it is to forcibly move us westwards. Do you think we will survive this march? It's very cold, and I see a trail of tears.
There was a breakout of war in 1829. Unlike normal wars, this war was different. This was the Bank Wars. Andrew Jackson versus Nicholas Biddle. Andrew Jackson believed that the economic power was too concentrated by a small handful of elites and not by the public people, while Nicholas Biddle supported the bank. They both fought each other endlessly in order to see who was right. However, this is over when Andrew Jackson got the high ground because he won the election of 1832 and ordered no more funds to be sent into the bank. He called it a hydra of corruption.
The Nullification Crisis was a United States sectional political crisis from 1832 to 1833 during the presidency of Andrew Jackson, which involved a confrontation between the state of Carolina and the federal government. It ensued after South Carolina declared that federal tariffs of 1828 and 1832 were unconstitutional and therefore null and void within the sovereign boundaries of the state. The controversial and highly protective Tariff of 1828 was enacted into law during the presidency of John Quincy Adams. The tariff was strongly opposed in the South since it was perceived to put an unfair tax burden on the southern states that imported most of manufactured goods. The tariff's opponents expected that the election of Jackson as president would result in the tariff being significantly reduced. When the Jackson administration failed to take any actions to address their concerns, the most radical faction in the state began to advocate that the state itself declare tariff null and void within South Carolina. In Washington, an open split on the issue occurred between Jackson and Vice President John C. Calhoun. On July 14, 1832, before Calhoun had resigned the vice presidency to run for the Senate, where he could more effectively defend nullification, Jackson signed into the law of 1832. This compromise received the support of most Northerners and half of the Southerners in Congress. The reductions were too little for South Carolina, and on November 24th of 1832, a state convention adopted the Ordinance of Nullification. However, on March 1st of 1833, Congress passed both the Force Bill authorizing the president to use military forces against South Carolina and a new negotiated tariff, a compromise tariff of 1833. The South Carolina Convention reconvened and repealed its nullification ordinance on March 15, 1833, but 3 days later nullified the Force Bill as a symbolic gesture to maintain its principles. The crisis was now over and both sides could find reasons to claim victory. Tariff rates were overall reduced and stayed low to the satisfaction of the South, but the states' rights doctrine of nullification remained controversial. Andrew Jackson was unique. He rose to presidency from humble beginnings. He was an old war hero and a man of the people. However, he enforced a law that made natives give up their land to white settlers. This made him a loved and hated person. On the other hand, Clay's personal magnetism made him one of America's best-loved politicians. His elaborate scheming made him one of the most cordially hated though. Through it all, he displayed remarkable consistency of purpose. He was a nationalist, devoted to the economic development and political integration of the United States, but he disapproved of slavery as a system as a whole in general. He advocated gradual emancipation and the resettlement of the free people in Africa. He defended unsuccessfully the right of the so-called five civilized tribes of Indians to their lands. He warned that annexation of Texas would provoke war with Mexico and exacerbate tensions between North and the South. And he opposed the war when it came as well.
So, sectionalism is loyalty to one's own region or section of the country rather than to the country as a whole. And during this time, the antebellum period, the country was divided into two, mainly two, the northern and the southern, in which the northern states were industrialized, while the southern states were agricultural dependent, in which they depended heavily on cotton. And sectionalism increased because the southern states thought that Congress was trying to sabotage, their economy. For example, in 1828, Congress passed a high protective tariff act which benefited the industrialized North, and the Southerners called this the Tariff of Abominations because they thought that Congress was trying to sabotage the Southerners' economy and profit. And in response to this, Congressman Henry Clay proposed a secondary tariff with lower rates to try and appease Southerners. However, this angered the Southerners even more, and they even threatened to secede from federal government and become their own island, if you could say. And this increased sectionalism even more, and not to mention that during this time, America is starting to move westwards, like Ohio, Mississippi, and during this time, the federal government is having a difficult time trying to deciding whether states are free states or slave states, and as a result, sectionalism increases it more. And to make things erupt even more, during this time, the abolitionists are also starting to voice their opinions to Congress about the morality of slavery. And due to this, Southerners they're at this point pissed at their own country because they think they're being sabotaged and everything is going against them. So this is all leading up to the Civil War, in which we see a division in the country, and things look very rough.
Alright, thanks for watching, guys. This is the end of the video.